Hello, my friends. It's me, Jerry Rasco, back again with another Spider-Man art retrospective video. If you haven't had a chance to see my earlier videos, there is a playlist here on my channel. I'd suggest go and pause here and go back and check out that playlist. I start all the way at the very beginning with Amazing Fantasy number 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man. But we've got today, and today takes us to The Amazing Spider-Man number 3, featuring a very classic villain, a villain that until a little bit later, and we'll get there of course, this guy was considered Spider-Man's, in the story, was considered Spider-Man's arch nemesis. Interesting, as we'll see the character arc for this villain go, and how that sort of moniker changes, kind of goes away, comes back at some time. So anyway, here we go. Without further ado, let's get to the comic. So here we have The Amazing Spider-Man number 3, and as I have mentioned in the past, these are PDF files of actual scanned copies of these comics. So you can see all the wear and tear. This is not my copy. I do not own this copy. But the PDF version looks exactly the way it would when you bought it off the newsstand all those years ago. It includes all of the ads and everything. So we'll see the whole thing go through this video. First, let's start with the cover. Great lighting, I noted. Again, written, I should note the credits, written by Stan Lee, of course, and drawn by Steve Ditko. And we'll see in the credits as we get to open the cover, but there are still no ink assists or ink credits. So this makes me believe that Steve Ditko was both penciling and inking all of these issues. So we have a lot of language, a lot of exposition here about what's happening. The world's most dreaded supervillain, Doctor Octopus's power is greater than Spider-Man's. Spider-Man faces Doctor Octopus. Can anything that lives defeat the mighty Doctor Octopus? And I find it interesting, they note here that this is a book-length super thriller. So if you've seen my earlier episodes, one of the things that I note is that a lot of these early issues have multiple stories in them, or they break kind of in weird places throughout the book, which is unlike a traditional comic book. And it made me think that the original plan for Spider-Man was to be in the anthology book Amazing Fantasy, and that that was a testing ground, right, for new characters and stuff. But Spider-Man proved to be so popular that they took these plans where these had been drawn, in advance to some degree, and compiled them into single books. So this tells me to me they have caught up to the fact that now it's going to be a single book all the time. So I find that that's an interesting fact, that they noted that here. What else? The green word balloon, interesting. I'll get to that. We, as modern readers who are familiar with the character of Doctor Octopus, whether it be in movies, cartoons, current comic books or newer comic books, video games, you name it, we associate green with Doctor Octopus. Usually the character is portrayed in some sort of a green outfit. Even this glove here has a green hue to it, and that the word balloon is green. We'll see what happens when we open the cover. One last thing, I come back to the black and red. So if you have watched any of my earlier videos, you would note that I have this running theory, that Steve Ditko originally designed the Spider-Man costume to be black and red, not red and blue as we understand it today. And there are a lot of examples that show that, that make me think that that's the case. If it's not red and black, he's using the shadow in an interesting way and maybe it's supposed to be like a midnight blue, and in shadow it would be dark. I don't know, but there's a lot of proof that it might be red and black. And this covers another great example. There's no reason not to have him be blue. The background is sort of a light blue, but it could be any color because Doc Ock is mostly black here. We could do anything. It just creates a real powerful silhouette of the character, which I think is really neat, and just something to watch as we continue through these issues. So going to the next page, we start with the splash page. Now, interesting, a lot of I've mentioned this before, and again, if you're new to my videos, I will call back to earlier things I've pointed out. So again, please, if you have the time, check out some of those earlier videos. They open with a splash page, sort of telling you what's going to happen. It's a montage or a some kind of recap, almost pre-recap. So a lot of language, a lot of stuff. Really cool. I like the foreshortening. There's a lot of foreshortening that Steve uses in this issue with these tentacles and with Doctor Octopus. If you're not familiar, foreshortening is the artist way of drawing things coming at you in a two-dimensional space by actually sort of overlapping the shapes of the things, which make it look shorter, but create that sense of space and something coming at the reader in a two-dimensional space. And so that's what he's done here with the arms coming at you. Very nice. And we're going to see the Human Torch, a Jack Kirby and Stan Lee creation from the Fantastic Four. We've seen them once before in Spider-Man #1, but here we're going to see a little more of Steve Ditko's version of the Human Torch, which is kind of interesting. Page 2, you have your panel grids. Nothing super exciting, except I believe this is the first appearance of the Spider Signal. Now, something that we don't see a lot of in modern Spider-Man comics. I remember it as a kid from the late 70s and the 80s that Spidey still used this as a method to either, like he does here, alert the police or scare the criminals or sometimes just light up an area. But he has this light on his belt that he can shine, and it's his face. As opposed to a spider or something like that. I think it's really interesting that they made it this Spider-Man face is his signal. Now, whether that came from, is that stolen from Batman? Of course, we know about the bat signal, but that's usually used a little differently. So interesting that this would be the Marvel take on this with Spider-Man having it on his belt. So he stops the crooks here. Again, nothing super exciting, just it's 6 panels, but introduces something that will carry through some of the rest of the history of the character. Page 3, this is a really nice establishing shot. We don't get a lot of these in these older comics sometimes. Like you see, right, so we've started here with a splash page. We come here, there's no establishing shot that says this is happening in New York, this is happening, it says it's near a lonely warehouse. We don't see the warehouse, we don't see the docks, we don't see anything like that. So here we have this really nice establishing shot to tell you that we've changed locations. This is an atomic research center, and that's very important to the story. So I like how Steve has done that by taking one panel all the way across the top of the page like that. It creates almost, because everything else on the page here is very segmented. It's more, other than this one down at the bottom, it's more vertical. This creates more of a panoramic shot, like you're looking at the horizon, and we think of that as a horizontal image. So really nice there. Really innovative design for Doc Ock. I think it's kind of neat. Steve has been, throughout the issue so far, really cool at how he designs individual characters to be individual. It's not the same face for every character. We'll see some of that later as well. People have different body types, different facial structures, hair, etc. And Doc Ock is really interesting. He has this very round, wide face. I mean, his mouth almost goes all the way to the edges of this wide face. He has these glasses and this sort of very shaggy, I think of it like Moe from the Three Stooges kind of haircut. But then the arms, right? So you're creating a guy called Doctor Octopus. Stan, in theory, has given you a plot and a concept. As this guy, he's got 4 arms. So we're going to call him Doc Ock because it sounds right. The alliteration is really nice. How do you do that? Where do you create the mechanism for the 4 arms? To have them be segmented in such a way that they can curl and bend, little fingers on the ends. Really, really cool design by Steve Ditko. Really like that. Here we go. There's the accident that's going to turn Doc Ock from just a regular old scientist into a supervillain. And I love this silhouette. It's sweet. I wish that this had been, half the page or 3/4 of the page or something like that. It would have been, it's such a cool image, and it's so critical to what happens to the character that I wish it was larger. But I love just the red, the silhouette lighting. You know exactly where that explosion is coming from and how it's lighting him up. Really, really cool. And then the rest of here is story. Again, neat, just that you can see how Dr. Octopus, again, is a very different designed person. His face, again, the eyes, real dark, all the wrinkles, the heavy brows, this very thick face and a thick body. I mean, he's really, for an atomic scientist, he's a thick guy with looks like a lot of muscle. Certainly compared to Peter Parker, our teenage hero. I think that kind of gets lost over the years, and we'll see down the road as we see more appearances of Dr. Octopus. His physical strength is something that, in a story capacity, kind of goes away. So now we move on to the next page. Really nice foreshortening again. Like I said, really cool having the arms come at you to show depth, right? So that the arms are closer, the Doc Ock's body is further away. So in a very small 2D space, creates nice space, nice depth. Also, one of the ways that you do that, not just is with the size, so the hands are larger than the other ends of the tentacles, but also the way you wrap the segments. So you wrap them around and bend with them, and they get tighter and smaller, closer together as they get further away from the viewer. So again, really nice visual trick to create space and depth in a cool comic. Same here. And the one below, not as extreme as this one, but also a very nice foreshortening. And then I noted down at the bottom here, we have, just from a story perspective, we have the photo scam. So earlier we had, I think it was, an issue or two ago, Peter Parker takes pictures of himself as Spider-Man and sells them to J. Jonah Jameson and the Daily Bugle. So now it is called the Daily Bugle. Originally, it was called Now Magazine. It's now referred to as the Daily Bugle. And so J. Jonah Jameson wants pictures of Doc Ock because it's in the news that there was this accident, so he wants pictures of him. And Peter's like, well, I'll get those for you, knowing that he's going to use his spider powers to take pictures and sell them back to Jameson, as if he has incredible photography skills, when really it's all due to his spider powers. So a trope that will continue to be part of Peter's life for a really long time throughout the series, of how is he going to sell photos to Jameson? Will anybody catch on? That kind of stuff. So some more, now we get into some Spider-Man action, heading to the hospital. Cool close-ups. I really, again, like, this is neat. We don't see a ton of close-ups, and this is done, obviously somebody somewhere was like, how does he stick to stuff? You know, maybe a letter from a fan, or Stan or Steve decided, you know, it's time to kind of really emphasize that. So he talks about his suction fingers, and he's complaining that stuff is too easy for him, which of course we'll find out it's not now. But I really like the pressure rate that's flattening out of just those fingertips, really showing you, you know, it's not, he doesn't need his whole hand. He's not gripping with the stone, you know, with strength. It's just these fingertips adhering, as well, just his toe tips. So really nice use of that to kind of fill in a little bit of the Spidey mythos, if you will. Let's see. Oh, I also noted this small image of Spider-Man up in the corner. I don't know if we've seen this before in the earlier issues, but he's drawn small so that the camera has pulled back to see the whole image. You've seen the whole wall that he's leaping over. So he's going from one area to another. We want to show that. But, and also you see the shadow so far below really emphasizes the height of this wall and how high he can jump. But there's no webbing drawn on this figure because it's so small. So again, for anybody who hasn't seen any of my earlier videos, comic books today at least are drawn on 11 by 17 paper, and the area that you're drawing inside of is 10.5 by 15 inches. These may have been drawn at a slightly different dimension, but that's how it is today. That's what I'm going to assume it was done then. So if you take a 10.5, you take a 15-inch high page and you divide it into thirds, at best, this is a 5-inch by 5-inch panel. So 5 inches by 5 inches is somewhere like this, not particularly huge. And so now you're drawing this Spider-Man. So this Spidey is small, maybe 1.5 inches in total size on the original page, and then shrunk down to comic book size. So there's any detail would be lost. So Steve, as the artist, knows I'm not going to put in the tiny little web lines. It'll get lost. But I like it as a storytelling technique. It tells us that we're so far away and that these details on his costume are so fine that you wouldn't really be able to see them from that far. So I think that's pretty cool. And then the last page here, the last panel, I thought it was some really nice overlapping for depth. So you have this smoke, which overlaps the tentacle arm, which overlaps the window, which overlaps Spider-Man. So you have all these layers of depth that tell us things are, you know, how far back things are. Again, in a very small, simple panel, but a really nice way to create some easy depth in a 2D space for storytelling purposes. Let's see here. Okay. So not a ton here to really talk about. Very typical stuff. I do like the wider panel at the top. Again, establishing what this is. This is a laboratory that he set up, I guess, at the hospital. You've got some nurses. And then it's a great way to show horizontally the width and space of his arms, how they can stretch and they move. Because they come off his sides, it'd be more horizontal than vertical, right? So a nice opportunity in use of this horizontal panel across the top. And now you have your regular stuff. Again, another small Spidey without the webbing on the costume as he busts in. And we're going to have our discussion, our standoff, and quick fight action. Okay, again, nothing terrific. Good. This is sort of the opposite. To be honest, I don't know what the opposite of foreshortening is. But these are extending into space, so the arms are getting smaller, coming from where the camera would be, almost like we're looking at Doctor Oct's perspective, and then they're getting smaller off into the distance. He gets a shot on him. Spidey uses webbing, which is great and not effective. So 6 panels, nothing super world-shattering to talk about in terms of the art of it. Pretty standard stuff that we've seen here so far. Now this page is great. I love using the big panels here to sell this moment of Spider-Man being defeated kind of for the first time. You know, he was defeated. You know, he had to, when he fought in issue 2 with the Vulture. There's an issue. The Vulture gets away. Spidey has to use his science knowledge to create a device that will defeat the Vulture. Here, he's just beaten physically, and really for the first time, and just dismissively. He's caught. Great angle of the top down here in this first panel, showing all the arms curling around and holding him in the air like that, and his contorted body struggling to get out, but he can't. Really, really nice camera angle. And so technically, I think the perspective is right. You could go in and do a perspective grid on this to make sure that everything is going back in the right angles, because this has multiple perspective angles on it by going down. Even if it's not right and it wasn't drawn out as a grid, it's cheated enough that it works. And it goes to show you, so you need to know the concepts when you're drawing comics. You need to know the concepts of perspective. It's one of the harder things for people to pick up, I think. But once you understand it, in panels like this where it doesn't have to be perfect, like I don't know if it's a painting, a whiteboard, a window, whatever it is on the side, that may not be in perspective correctly. That being said, it doesn't matter. It works, and you know enough of the rules that you can kind of fake it, and it works great. Great body language here as well. On both 10 and 11. I love this body language, this defeated Spider-Man. You feel the effort of him getting up, like there's weight on top of him. Fantastic body language to sell the emotions of the character who's rocked by being physically defeated really for the first time. So he's debating, is he powerful enough to be a hero if he can be beaten so easily? Let's see here. So panels 2, 3, 4. I guess. I get it. 3, 4, 5. So panels 3, 4, 5. I'm looking at my own notes and trying to figure it out. I don't love panels 3, 4, 5. 6 as well. I'm not a fan of these 4 panels. And one of the reasons is, in every one of these panels, Doc Ock is the exact same size in each panel. Like, no matter where you are. So here he's escaping the hospital, but really it looks like he's going up a building, but the wrong way. I'd like to see him facing the other direction if he's escaping something. I mean, I get it, he's climbing down a building, but there's ways you could do that. Now he's going over the fence, but these two figures are almost exactly the same size. This figure is almost the exact same pose as this one, as he's trying to climb in a window. And then it's even hard to tell, but you have to track the word balloon. He's hiding in the ceiling, gripping the ceiling with his arms so that they look like pipes. Again, other ways you could do that, other angles that could have been used that I think would have been more visually interesting. So not a real big fan. It gets the storytelling done, but it's not visually interesting. Let's see here. Again, nothing crazy here. I don't really have a ton of notes for this page because it's not a lot going down. Doc Ock takes over this. It's the Atomic Research Center where he was working. He uses his arms to take over and begins manipulating all the machines like it's a big factory kind of thing, I guess. But again, visually, artistically, there's nothing crazy exciting. This has a little bit of a Dutch angle, so that's that. Instead of everything being, when you're your feet firmly planted on the ground if you're holding a camera, right? The whole concept is you're either viewing it with your eyes or you're viewing this story with a camera, right? That's how you think about it. Instead of being firmly flat and nice and horizontal, looking at the image as we are with some of these other panels, you have tilted it a little. And that creates a sense of unease in the viewer. And that's what he's used here as the arm is snaking through to open up this door that's locked from the inside. Okay, it's subtle, not fantastic. The image from the top down here is okay with Doc Ock. As always, Steve has done a great job in just positioning a figure with a lot of shadow, so there's some good lighting, and it fits all the dialogue. And if anybody's read Stan Lee Marvel comics, you know it was full of a lot of dialogue. So fair enough. Again, it gets the job done, but I'm not super excited by this page. This one, panel 2 is crazy. Look at this craziness. In fact, I want to zoom in a little bit on that panel just to look at what we're seeing here in this. Look at this crazy face. So really cool job with the lighting. The light is coming up from below, so the top of his nose is shadowed, the top of his hair, all the top surfaces, top of his arm here, which is really nice. The top of his tentacle arms, so cool. And then these little radiating lines, like his brain is gone off the rails and it's just generating energy. So great. This huge smile. I really enjoy the lighting of this. Again, selling the storytelling with some really cool lighting in a very simple page. I love it. So let's zoom back out here so that we can see the whole page. Not much else in the rest of it. Peter is very upset. He thinks he's going to have to quit being Spider-Man because he can't hack it, right? He's got beat, so I guess he'll never beat Doc Ock. So he's ready to hang it up. And then, ironically, at his school, there's a speech being given, a motivational speech by the Human Torch. Steve's drawing of the Human Torch is fine. It's, if you know Fantastic Four, the uniform, the costume is great. The Johnny Storm, he's drawn like Johnny Storm, no problem. But the story-wise is kind of interesting. One, that he's a celebrity. The Fantastic Four go and give motivational speeches at high schools to kids because they're such famous celebrity superheroes. Interesting, especially as we get into further issues with Spider-Man and the way that the public feels about Spider-Man. So he's giving a speech, and but his flame is down. So in the early days of the Fantastic Four, after Johnny used his powers for a while, he'd have to sort of recharge. And so he says he's at a point where his power level is too low, so he can't fight crime, but he's here to talk to these kids and tell them never to give up. And that is what motivates Peter to get back on the horse and not give up being Spider-Man. It's almost like he's completely forgotten his mantra of with great power comes great responsibility. Apparently, once you get your butt whooped, I guess he doesn't have great power. He thinks he has okay power, so he only has okay responsibility. I don't know. Interesting story concept. So he's remotivated by the Fantastic Four, and he's ready to get back into action, and he is determined he's going to stop Doc Ock this time. The catapult move. This is a Spider-Man trope that we'll see again in the future. So, if you think about Spider-Man, as a kid, I wanted to be Spider-Man more than anything in the world. If you had asked me what I was going to be when I grew up, I was going to say Spider-Man. However, I lived in a very rural part of the country where I didn't have skyscrapers and city buildings and put all together really, in blocks where I could swing from thing to thing. So I was always like, well, how am I going to get around? Telephone poles, trees, like I don't have the buildings to swing on that Spidey does. And in his stories here, we've come to a point where we go, ooh, this isn't around a whole bunch of buildings for him to swing on. So he goes back to this. He's going to pull the webbing back, whether it's the flexibility of the trees or the stretchiness of the webbing. Either way, it flings him across distances when he can't be swinging somewhere. And this is a method of travel that we see throughout the history of Spidey's stories. So look for that again in the future. Let's see. Again, some usual stuff. Again, the small Spidey. A lot of shots here where where Peter's getting his costume on, the soldiers, Doc Ock. These would be considered mid shots or medium shots. I can't see the character's feet, so it's not a whole body. It's not zoomed in all the way, so I just see their face. This is kind of a medium range, kind of like where you and I are right now. This is medium. The rest are all a lot of long shots, which I really like. It's, again, whether this is Steve Ditko, I think it just is a sign of the times of older comic books. There's a lot of these mid shots. Whereas, so pulling back and seeing these wider shots of the whole body as he's moving around, even in a page that has 7 panels. That's a lot of panels. Again, remember, it's 10.5 by 15 area, shrunk down. That's a lot of drawings in this kind of real estate, and yet we've been able to see Spidey in space, which I really like. Here in this one, I thought the lighting was really cool in this first panel. I like that a lot. The shadow, the light is clearly hitting him right in the face. So again, all the top and the back side of the arms is shadow. The way he uses the shadows to define the consoles and stuff. I really like the lighting. It matches with that image we saw earlier of crazy Doc Ock. Here again, on the bottom panel, some cool lighting where, again, he's on monitors. He's trying to scan and find where Spider-Man is. And so those monitors and dials and things are emitting light. And Steve takes that into consideration and really shadows him where the light would not be. I like that. That's really, really, really nice. Here we get to another trope, the Spidey science trope. So this happens a lot in these early Spider-Man comics. Spidey faces a villain for the first time. His spider powers alone are not enough to overcome the villain, whether it's their powers, their technology, whatever it is. And so so he goes back to the drawing board. He comes up with a scientific way to help him defeat the villain, and then the combination of his science and spider powers together help defeat the villain. And I like this because it's one of the things that makes Spider-Man different than other heroes, right? The Hulk can't fall back on that. Well, the Hulk has Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner is a scientist, but they're never together. This is just a really nice way of differentiating that Spidey is actually really, really smart, and that there's more to him as a person than either Peter's just smart and Spider-Man is powerful. He really is one person. And so I really, really like that. So here we go. He's using his scientific knowledge. He's going to hatch up a trap that he's going to use to try to help him defeat Doc Ock. Let's see here. So they finally catch up and the battle begins. and the I'm assuming it's acid, and I don't think it ever says what it is, but it's a some sort of chemical mixture that fuses the metal arms together, right? So he splashes it on the ends of them, and then the arms get fused together. So I assumed it was some sort of an acid type thing. So now two of his arms are sort of out of commission, but Spidey's still in trouble. There's other arms to deal with, and how is he going to do it? So he reverts back to the webs on the eyes trope. Again, another classic Spider-Man trope. You need a moment to breathe. You need to get your enemy off balance. How do you do it? Shoot some webbing on their face, blind them for a minute, and then gives you an opportunity to take advantage of the next move. Nice large panel at the bottom. Again, I like the horizontal panels when you have those tentacles, because again, they're oriented horizontally, so it really helps emphasize the fact that Spidey's in the arms and he's being pulled towards Doc Ock's body. Great use of a horizontal panel there, as opposed to, doing it in a smaller panel and pulling the camera back. I like this a lot. This one, honestly, it's a little verbose or slow. So from here, he's getting pulled towards Doc Ock. He can't see. I would like to see this. I would go straight from that to the momentum of Spidey punching him out. Boom! And I would make this a lot bigger panel. And then you have the wrap up, right? Okay, he's out cold. He's going to tie up his tentacles, and then the military are going to come in and find him. This stuff here of Doc Ock finally gets the webbed glasses off his face. He gets in a couple of punches, and then Spidey punches him. This is a great punch, by the way. The body language here of the one arm up and the other one down. Great sell, great motion there. I like that a lot. I just would like to see that, again, a third of the page, half the page, and then put some of this other stuff towards the bottom. That's just my opinion. It feels like it slows down. You have this momentum of this crazy, frantic fight. Spidey's jumping. He's getting punched. The tentacles are everywhere. They've got him. He's trying to hold on. They're pulling him towards Doc Ock, and then now it slows down. Oh, okay, you got the web off. Oh, he's punching me. All right, I gotta punch him, and it's just one panel. It's the same size as all the others. So I would do it different, but hindsight is 20/20, right? And then we have this random pinup. It's nice. You go, okay, nothing wrong with a page of Spider-Man. Makes me wonder if somewhere along the line they did the story, so Stan gives the plot, Steve Ditko draws the pages and miscounted, or something, and they went, ooh, we got to fill in a page. We're a page short. So if you've never made a comic book, one of the things that you might not realize until you stop and think about it is comic books are printed both sides of a folded piece of paper and stapled in the middle, which means each piece of paper has 4 pages on it of comic book story. So if you have a piece of paper, split it down the middle. So this is one page, then there's the staples, here's the other page, but you folded it in half so that this is also a page, and then this is also a page further back. So again, you imagine you take a stack of paper, fold it in half to make a little book, but each side of that paper is a page. So your comic books need to be printed in orders of 4. So you could have a 20 page, 24, 28, 32. So, but if you're short a page, you got to fill in with a pinup or something like that. back to the story. Again, nothing crazy here. The last two panels have some very nice camera angles of Spidey climbing. I like that a lot. I'm always a fan of changing up the camera angles. This one, it's not quite there in terms of the image we see of Spider-Man climbing up at us. Obviously, other artists later really perfect that. But I just like the change up. I like seeing that angle, and again, the foreshortening of the body is done well. So there we go. We've got the spider signal again, and then real subtle. There's nothing noted about it, but if you look at Doc Ock, he has like a little Spider-Man card hanging from him. So I guess Spidey leaves his calling card. Like, I don't understand. The guy's hanging from a web and webbed up. Who else did it? Who else would you think did it? The calling card thing is interesting. I don't know where that came from. I don't think it sticks around for that long that I'm aware of. And it's just this really little thing there. If you didn't look close, you might miss it. Interesting. And then here we go, second time that Steve Ditko's done the entire Human Torch in his version. Kind of neat. Again, just to see and be able to compare to Jack Kirby at the time. Still the same concept of using the lines to show that he's on fire. Almost, I guess the idea is it's supposed to just show the form through the hazy heat and the flames, right? So, like, I guess the way if you have a large fire and you see the object that's burning, but you can't really see the details of it, I think that's the concept that they were using. And then one more a trope, which is the Human Torch and Spider-Man being rivals / friends. That comes up a lot. They're the same age or similar in age. They, over the course of history, the stories, they end up becoming. Sometimes they're friends. Sometimes they're rivals. They joke with one another. Spidey, reaches out to the Torch for help or advice. Sometimes, vice versa. Torch, reaches out to Spidey. Interesting that the two of them, again, have this on-off friend-rival kind of relationship down the road. And that is our book. So come back here. So that is the Amazing Spider-Man number 3, featuring Doc Ock, one of Spidey's greatest enemies, I would say. Somebody who pops up a lot, that has legitimate villain credibility, and kind of waxes and wanes in terms of popularity or seriousness. Sometimes Doc Ock isn't taken as serious as he should be. And again, until we get to another famous villain that hasn't shown up yet, Doc Ock ends up being, we see him quite a bit more here in these early issues of Spider-Man, and is considered Spidey's arch nemesis. So we'll see more of that. Oh, one more thing. Let me get back to the beginning, and I forgot to comment. So I started at the beginning, and I talked about this green, that the green outline. Now, that could just be done to help pop it, to make it more visually exciting on the newsstands. There's a little bit of green in this glove here, and green. As I mentioned, today we think of Doc Ock wearing green. He wears green all the time. But in this, he's wearing white. Now, he wears white in his accident, and then later he continues to wear sort of this scientist, I guess is what they're trying to show, as a scientist, a lab type outfit with the gloves, but everything's all white except for his shoes, all white. So we haven't seen the green outfit yet. So just interesting that I don't know if that's foreshadowing. I don't know if it's just happy coincidence. But yeah, we eventually will see the Doc Ock transition to green. Now, from a visual storytelling standpoint, it makes sense. White we typically associate with goodness, purity, cleanliness, things like that. You don't typically associate white with villainy. Also, the green being a complementary color to red helps offset the two characters, just like we saw in issue number 2 with the Vulture. That green costume, when the two of them are grappling, you have this bright red Spidey, this bright green Vulture. The two figures really pop. They don't overlap or blend together in any way. That eventually is the same thing with Doc Ock. So there we go. Thank you for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts on what you think about the issue. Had you never seen this before? Are you a big fan of Spider-Man or Steve Ditko or both or Marvel Comics? Leave me a comment. Let me know. I do read all of the comments from the videos, and I thank you very much for leaving those comments. Also, if you can, like the video if you do, and subscribe to the channel. I'm working on putting out these videos weekly, and we're going to work through all of the amazing Spider-Man comics that I have access to. And it's a lot. So we're starting here at the beginning, but we're going to get to all the crazy, critical, awesome, famous stories and artists that have worked on Spider-Man over the years. So that's what we have to look forward to. I thank you for taking this journey with me. Enjoy, and we'll see you on the next video.